Welcome to Boring Conversations. I'm your host, Biringkpa, and for today, I want us to look at a thing that is dear to me, a thing that is both political and philosophical, a thing that is as well theological to a very large extent. And what is that? The reality of being a Nigerian today. Why is this very important to me? It is important to me for a whole lot of reasons. Reasons stemming from the current realities we come to find around ourselves. We are in a serious existential crisis, but sometimes we ordinarily don't even know that we are in such a situation, and sometimes it's very difficult to even come to look at ourselves within such spectrum. Just like our elders want to say that someone who is drunk ordinarily doesn't come to accept the reality of one's drunkenness, or someone who is mad doesn't ordinarily come to feel the shame that accompanies madness. It is only those who are relatives to such a person that ordinarily come to terms with the madness and the shame that ordinarily comes from that particular situation. Similarly, we also, if you are to go by Western standards, you come to see also the idea of the metrics. Are we simulations currently living in this world? Are we really in the current existence we ordinarily should be, or are we somewhere else? If you take it a bit further, you come to look at ontology, and in looking at ontology, you come to look at things like concretism or abstract concretism, and you come to look at someone like Quine, you come to look at someone like Aquinas, you come to look at someone like Plato, you come to look at realism from the standpoint of Aristotle. You look at different persons and you look at what they have come to opine over the years. You look at someone like Hume, and you look at someone like John Rawls, and you look at the different ways of them coming to try to make sense of reality. But in and about all of this is we still talking about the same thing. What is existence? Jean Paul Sartre will come to give us his own definition of what he believes to be existence. Um, Existence precedes essence for him. He said that against the backdrop of the existential situations that he found himself situated in the 20th century. You find his brother also, the Algerian philosopher Albert Camus, talking about the same stuff. And you come to look at how he looked at the Algerian situation and how he ordinarily situated himself within the conflict between the French government of the time and the people of Algeria. And the problem has not stopped. Even up until now, Algeria is still having its tough time with France. A thing that ordinarily speaks to how little progress have been made in that particular region. But nonetheless, we're talking about Nigeria. What about Nigeria? What about Nigeria that needs talking? What about Nigeria that really needs our attention? What about the country? What do we need to know about a place like Nigeria? What should we be talking about Nigeria? Nigeria is important for a whole lot of reasons. Nigeria is important for a whole lot of reasons, and I say this because that is actually the case. It is not necessarily born out of induction, but you can also look at it from an inductive standpoint. But beyond induction, also, if you look at someone like Karl Popper, you can also look at the falsification claim he gave, and you will still arrive at the same problem that you still arrive at the same answer that I'm giving, that Nigeria is a very important country within the framework of the African system. For tell me how you want a continent like Africa to ordinarily get to succeed without Nigeria being taken into consideration. How do you want a continent as large as Africa to ordinarily come to make sense of its rightful place in the world without looking at the 200 plus million people that currently stay impoverished in one section of the continent, a country that constitutes so many people, a country that has so many young minds and youthful energy and exuberance not actually used at the moment. And tell me how ordinarily a continent like Africa ordinarily is to achieve what it ordinarily is to achieve if it doesn't come to engage the minds and the youths that currently constitute a place like Nigeria. But this is just a tip of the iceberg. What are we really looking at here? What are we ordinarily to be talking about? What are we really to be considering as Nigerians? What are we really to be in conversation with? What are we really to be looking at to ordinarily come to understand our problems? We go back to someone like Jim Paul Sartre. Jim Paul Sartre will get to tell us about the idea of bad faith, a situation where people ordinarily come to accept their oppression and ordinarily come to situate themselves around that particular place and come to, make themselves malleable to the extent whereby they come to accept their different levels of oppression and then come to live in and about such a situation. That has become our situation in a place like Nigeria. Over the years, we've come to tell ourselves, consciously or unconsciously, that almost nothing can be done. Whether the current president was duly elected or not, we've come to accept our fate that, what will happen in Nigeria. Whether there will be change or not, we've come to tell ourselves that, we ordinarily should accept what is our current faith. But in doing that, we also come to make jokes about our situation. We also come to, turn almost everything that happens around us to comedy. And so you look at the rise in content creation and you ask yourself, how many content creators ordinarily were supposed to be doing something else? This is not me attacking content creation. This is me just asking a very genuine question. How many persons were ordinarily supposed to be TikTokers? How many persons were ordinarily supposed to be content creators? How many persons were ordinarily supposed to be musicians? How many persons were ordinarily supposed to be social media influencers? As opposed to the backdrop that such amount of people or that particular category of those who ordinarily now find themselves within the content creation space should have been doing almost other stuff, so that we will not give someone like Reno Mokri the chance to ordinarily come to dispute as to the study of things like social studies or things like library science, things like philosophy and psychology and a couple of other courses you come to find him making caricature of. Because we now just tie in and about everything to making money and making money. But what is the goal of making money? Is to live life well. What is the goal of making this box? What is the goal of migration? If not for the fact that situations back home have not really been attended to. Existential crisis back home have not really been looked at. Our situation have not critically been examined and x-rayed by ourselves, and truth have not been placed before us. So that we find Chinua Achebe still reminding us that the trouble with Nigeria is simply and squarely a failure of leadership. Leadership on many fronts. Leadership on many fronts. The government of the country at the moment has failed. And we need to accept that particular reality. And their failure is not just about their failure. Their failure is a thing born out of accumulation of failures down the road. Accumulation of failures that have come down ordinarily now to be a thing we now come to hold and come to accept. So that you look at the country, you look at the way things ordinarily are at the moment, you look at how things have been going for the past 10 years, and you tell yourself, it has not just been about a failure of leadership alone. It has been about the failure also of followership. Because just like Dele Farotimi would get to say, people can only be followers when they are leaders. And at the moment, it is very difficult to talk about leaders in Nigeria. Just like Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie will get to tell us, Nigeria is starved of role models. The youth don't ordinarily even know who to look up to. They look up to the wrongest of persons, if that's even semantics to go by. They look at crops of people ordinarily they shouldn't be looking at. They get their source of inspiration and their source of guidance as to how to lead life and how to live life from the wrongest of places. And in doing so, they come to live life below the benchmark of what the 21st century is. They come to settle for what ordinarily they shouldn't be settling for. They come to they come to accept what they ordinarily shouldn't be accepting. They come to live life in places where ordinarily they shouldn't be doing in the first place. They come to accept the idea of sunshine when indeed they are the sun. They come to accept to manage whatsoever is given to them, as opposed to them ordinarily telling themselves and beating their chest and saying, I think I deserve better. I think I'm a Nigerian. I think I should be loved. I should be respected. I should be granted all things ordinarily that is due to me without excuses. And you see this born out of the fact that citizens have failed to be citizens. And you see this in the complaints of Dele Farutimi. You see this in the constant call of someone like Dike Chukwumerije, calling us to come to ordinarily recognize our place within the Nigerian society, calling us to give away the tribe, to ordinarily come to accept a national front. Not giving up the tribe as giving up the tribe and losing our sense of identity. No. Ujuku, in his work, Because I Am Involved, and elsewhere also, you get to hear him say, for the nation, the Nigerian nation, to ordinarily move forward, the tribe has to come to recognize the fact that for the nation to succeed, the tribe needs to give way, the tribe needs to come out of the box upon which it has come to box itself, and give way, and give way indeed for success to ordinarily be the case of the country, for success to ordinarily get to triumph. Because for how long are we going to continue telling ourselves that the problems of the north are not our problems? Or for how long are we going to tell ourselves that the problems the south ordinarily experience is no business of the easterner? Or for how long are we going to tell ourselves that the west can go to hell for all we care, because we are at the center, or we are at the north central, we are in the south, as we have come to ordinarily call such geographical position? For how long are we going to tell ourselves that we are not together? But there lies the problem. Our problems are not devoid of ethnicity. Our problems are not devoid of tribes. Hunger knows no distinction. Just the same way as the creation of wealth would ordinarily benefit every tribe if we ordinarily come to look at it squarely. Hunger knows no bound, it knows nobody, it knows nobody. Suffering has no peculiar tribe it is familiar to. The shame of living in a country as Nigeria is not peculiar to those only in the country. Even those who travel abroad get to carry that embargo, carry that emblem, and then that emblematic representation follows them almost wherever they get to go to. So that as a Nigerian, you have to almost be cross checked over and over again. And the few times you get to be praised is when, probably, if you are in Germany, you get to be asked about a culture, or if you are in Turkey, you still get to be asked about a culture, or you find yourself in Poland, they get to ask you about this Emenike, and a couple of players that ordinarily graced the international space a few years ago. And at the moment, also, if you're in Istanbul, people get to associate you with your brother or Seaman and the different persons that are in and about that. And someone get to talk about Bonner Boy, Thames, and the likes of this. But beyond that, a thing like corruption is almost synonymous with our name. And how is that so? It is so because we have not really been so careful about our name. We don't really almost give a damn about that particular reality. And so, if we must succeed, if we must go forward, if we must progress, we ordinarily have to come to consider this. We ordinarily have to consider ourselves within the framework of the African continent and our role in this continent. And our role in the continent is a thing we must take seriously. If you're reading Chinua Achebe's The Trouble with Nigeria from the very beginning, you get to see him proceed the claim that the that history has bestowed upon Nigeria a role so important that it cannot run away from. It has bestowed on Nigeria a role so important it cannot run away from. And what is that role? The role that it ordinarily has a place and a role to play within the African continent as well as the world at large. And how is that so? The population, the mineral deposits, the human resources, the natural resources, the ecosystem, the climate given to it, the fact that you can literally turn left, right, center, back, front, anywhere in Nigeria, and you find farmers. And you find farmers who ordinarily, at the turn of the soil, add a little bit of tilling and planting of seeds and dispersing of different stuffs and planting of stems and roots and tubers. In about 6, 8, 9 months, you come down there and you have a bountiful harvest. But what has happened in recent time, or what has happened over the years, the government have not really come to look at this thing squarely. You go to the period of Shehu Shagari and you are seeing the whole idea of the green plan and how that became a thing for crazy levels of corruption and how such a plan ordinarily eluded us. Why? Because we ordinarily have not looked at the Nigerian situation for what it ordinarily is. And what is the Nigerian situation? The fact that we are brothers and sisters, and the only way we can make progress is by coming together, and coming together to do what? Coming together to salvage our problem, coming together to see to it that, you know what, if it crumbles with all of us. And why does it have to be taken care of? Because we ordinarily have to take care of it. Take, for instance, Dike Chukwumerije telling us in his poem, a broken road does not understand Igbo. Do not maim the Fulani and let the rest of us go. The accident it will cause will take our lives. When a vehicle somersaults, it breaks our bones. But where is the lie? The buses that get to collide and collapse in our roads and get to somersaults and tumble and cause commotions on our roads and take lives, don't know who an Hausa man is, don't know who an Igbo man is, don't know who a Yoruba woman is, don't know who the person from Ibira is, don't know a Calabar woman or a Calabar girl or an Ogoja boy. It takes the life of everybody within that particular space because what? It is an accident. It doesn't discriminate. Is it poverty? It doesn't discriminate also. And so if you continue to listen to DK, he will tell you so you can speak no pay till morning comes. It will not build libraries in our public schools. And when a young woman, lies dying in childbed, your fluency in a job will not save her life. For Christian or Muslim, it makes no difference when you are being driven around in an ambulance from hospital to hospital in search of oxygen. Northerner or southerner, you will die suffocating. You will die of causes easily preventable, like no fuel for police to respond to distress call, no water, no light, no nurses, no jobs. Nothing kills as efficiently as bad governance. And to make matters worse, bad governance is a thing we've seen over the years, we've seen happen to us over and over and over and over, and we almost do nothing. We just sit down and tell ourselves, like Chinua Achebe will still proceed. A mythic ship one day would come with caravans from wherever they are coming from, and a whole lot of things ordinarily will be given to us and presented to us, and our situation will be solved. And we tell ourselves these stories and we believe it. And really, our religious leaders also don't even help matters. They make matters worse on many fronts by telling us that, you know what, it is all fine, it is all good, it is all plausible, it is in and about the ways ordinarily things ordinarily should be. And so we see ourselves nursing false hope. We see ourselves nursing this desire to ordinarily be what we ordinarily cannot be. And what can't we be? We cannot be the lies these people are telling us. Our leaders ordinarily should do better, can do better, must do better. For we ordinarily come to make sense of our lives. If we don't do these things, we crumble together. If we don't do these things, our lives will not come to make sense. If we don't do what we ordinarily are supposed to do, we will continue to fold and we will continue to go down. If we don't listen to DK, who gets to tell us that if we ordinarily are tired of this shame, if you are tired of needing a letter from a senator to get a job, if we are tired of insecurity, we ought to fix the politics. If we are tired of the anger, the hunger in our streets, if we are tired of children who die before age 5, if we are tired of children who become marginals, who stay by the street and become beggars for the rest of their life, if we are tired of dying in hospitals and dying in road accidents and not getting jobs and not having chances of getting to travel, if we're tired of not having the chance of getting to study, if we're tired of all the stupidity that ordinarily we come to exhibit, if we're tired of the absurdities in which we have to put up with as a nation, we ordinarily must come to fix the politics. It is not left for P2B alone to do. It is not left for Dele Farotimi alone to do. It is not left for Shawore to do alone. It is not left for Deji alone. It is not left for Very Dark Man alone to come to sort the problems of the country. The problems of the country is not to be left in the hands of someone like Agbajalingo. These people cannot do it alone because lone voices are already dead voices. It's almost like failed voices already, but talk is not cheap. Talk is not cheap. It is also something we ordinarily have to come to accept. These people are doing the much they can do, and we must support them by all means possible. Nihibe Efyong is doing the much he ordinarily can do within the space of him being a young lawyer, and he must be supported to the level he ordinarily ought to be supported. Fisayo is doing the best he could do and he can do as a journalist who ordinarily shouldn't be a journalist, but circumstances have found him worthy, and he's in such a position. We shouldn't leave the whole bug of the work to the writings and the pleas and the anger of David Hundenyi and this happiness within us to, want to just come to love and like what he is doing and stuff like that. No. We should ordinarily come to look at the problems for what they are. We shouldn't get so comfortable by just listening to our problems and listen to people write about this and we say, you know what, Showore, you be man. Dele Farutimi Kai, I like what you are saying. DG, I like your advocacy. Agbajalingo, I like the things you are doing. David Hundenyi, I like the things you get to write and the things you get to expose. We as people should take information given to us and want to use them and put them into practice. That is the only way we can function well. That is the only way we can grow as a people. That is the only way we can make sense of our existence. Outside of this, I don't see how we are making progress. Outside of this, I don't see how we are making sense of our life. Outside of this, I don't see how we want to move forward and forge ahead as a people and come to make sense of our life and our existence. Outside of this, there's no salvation. Outside of this, there's nothing for us. And don't look to the west, don't look to the east, don't look across the global south. Solutions don't come. The world is as a place where we are moving towards an individualistic perspective, even to business. This idea of pulling out, breaking the international trade agreements and stuff like that, and countries going to isolationism and them wanting to be on their own and them wanting to prosper on their own. It is this particular realm we are heading to. Every country puts its people first. What are our leaders doing? What are our leaders doing, and what can we tell them to do well that they are not doing well at the moment? And what must they do to ordinarily see to it that we work well? It is one of the ways we ordinarily should look at our problems, because our existential problems are too many. Too many, too many, too many, and they need attention. And they need attention now, not tomorrow. I know you're already asking me, what are the existential problems in a place like Nigeria? I will tell you. Take, for instance, the situation whereby, we queue in line to get fuel every year. We do this every month. Every month, We do this every year, year in, year out, and then there are no solutions gotten. We have committees set up here and there. We have NMPC come out to lie to us here and there, and we get to tell us we get them tell us that refineries are already working and things are at the moment in place. But almost every government that comes in and goes the way they have been doing. Let's not even talk about the military era. Let us talk about the period within which we've come to claim to practice democracy. A thing I stand I stand to be corrected that we have not ordinarily done. And so what do you see? You see us stand there every day wanting to buy fuel. You see us stand there every day talk about scarcity. You see us stand there talk about the problems of the country. You see us talk about these problems every day, and you think, we should know better, we should try to do better, we ordinarily can do better, but that's in and about one of just a minute existential crisis as a people. On the other hand, you look at the fact that our educated are not employable. Unemployable here, I'm not talking about not those who cannot get jobs. I'm talking about those who cannot be employed. Because you look at the number of people who leave our universities, and you look at the number of people who leave our polytechnics, and you look at the trauma that many of them have come to experience at the hands of government officials. Government officials here now, I mean university administrators, polytechnic managers, and administrators still. Also, you look at the colleges of educations and you come to ask yourself, what's the point of them ordinarily going down there? And so you find many persons saying education is a scam. I don't even beg to be corrected here. Education is not a scam. Education is not a scam. Be it formal education or informal education, whether the one you have to go to a classroom or the one you have to be apprenticed on, education is not a scam. Don't let anybody deceive you. Don't let somebody who, by way of chance and by way of luck and connection, ordinarily gets to punch some digital skills and some digital keys and performs one stuff or the other here and bet one way or the other here and become what you call a pseudo millionaire or a pseudo billionaire, come to tell you that education is a scam. Why should you listen to somebody who has money ordinarily gotten from one way or the other, come to tell you that education is a scam? They don't connect. The fact that somebody has money, the fact that somebody has come to the threshold of wealth doesn't negate whatsoever education is, except you fail to understand what education ordinarily is supposed to do. Education is not promising you wealth. It is what you have to come to realize. Education has never promised you riches. At the very core of its promise is the idea of enlightenment, the idea of dispelling ignorance. And with that, it can serve as a means to an end, whereby with educated people governing the way things ordinarily are done in the country, a country can move out of poverty when the ideas of best minds and the ideas of educated minds and wise people come to be interpreted and employed in solving problems. Don't believe this lie, the lie that tells you that education is a scam and that formal education is going out of fashion. No. Formal education, for all it claims to be, is not going out of fashion. You might argue about the Industrial Revolution and how things ordinarily have been done and how rigid the academia is at the moment, and how people are claiming to be custodians and gatekeepers of knowledge and all you want to say from today till tomorrow. But the way the world functions at the moment, capitalists for whatsoever they are, socialists for whatsoever they are, Marxists for whatsoever they are, still fall back to the philosophical and social ideas that ordinarily are churned out of our universities, are churned out of our institutions of thinking and the think tanks we have in and about the world. Don't allow them tell you that the university at the moment is going out of fashion. It is just you getting to believe in a lie. It is a problem. when a group of people, a young generation or growing generation ordinarily come to be deceived, come to be told that emancipating themselves and emancipating their minds ordinarily is a thing that ordinarily should be done in isolation from studies. I'm not saying you must go to a university, but I'm saying the fact that you don't go to university doesn't negate the importance of a university. The fact that you don't go to a technical school doesn't negate the importance of craft. Because when the chips are down, you need an educated pilot. When the chips are down, you need an educated economist. When the chips are down, you need an educated philosopher. When the chips are down, you need an educated theologian. When the chips are down, you need an educated engineer. When the chips are down, you need a technician who ordinarily knows the laws of nature and who knows ordinarily how things ordinarily are supposed to be done. And these things cannot be done without engaging the mind. And how do you engage the mind? By educating the mind. And how do you do that? You subject yourself not just to induction, not just to intuition, not just to the things you ordinarily come to believe are the impulses that ordinarily get to govern and guide you. You subject your mind, you subject yourself to tested truths. You subject yourself to theories that ordinarily have been proven over time. Be that from science based theory, be that from cultural based theory, be that from social based theory, be that from sociobiological ways of coming to look at things, be that from philosophies, be that from different cultural ways of coming to assimilate and coming to understand ethical codes and ethical frameworks and moralities and different ways of ordinarily doing business and ordinarily coming to live in and about our world today. These things are in and about them born out of the fact that we must come to the truth of our situation. And what is the truth of our situation? That we stand in dear need of help. And someone like Fanon stands at the other end of our life telling us something. What is Fanon telling us? He's saying, at the moment, every generation must ordinarily come to identify its mission, must ordinarily come to strive to ordinarily fulfill such a mission, must ordinarily do everything within its power to ordinarily see to it that its mission and the purpose upon which they find themselves is accomplished. Else such get to betray themselves. And Fanon was not too old to ordinarily discover that. He died in his mid 30s to show you how young he was. But ordinarily, as a psychologist plunged within the French madness at the time in which he found himself living, he ordinarily knew what he was saying. Dying at the age he died is no fun. It was already enough for him to know how things ordinarily should be done. And we shouldn't deceive ourselves that we are still too young. We aren't young. Ask yourself how old was Martin Luther King when he died. Ask yourself when was Malcolm X killed. Ask yourself when did Rosa Parks start the things she ordinarily did. Ask yourself when did Davis did the stuff she did. Ask yourself at what point did someone like Angela Merkel become a politician and how did she lead her life? Ask yourself the years upon which Mandela struggled to ordinarily become a lawyer and how long it took him ordinarily to come to clear all it takes for him to be a lawyer. Ask yourself how old was Dike Chukwumerije when he wrote the first set of poems he wrote. Ask yourself how old was he still when he wrote a thing like The Wall and the Bridge. When he said, when God created man, he gave him no facial marks. God did not create Ogun, Angas, or whatsoever. These things are born out of our own distinctions. We are the ones who have created these parallels, and we are the ones who have created this artificial speciation that ordinarily shouldn't be. We are the ones who have divided ourselves across the different lines we ordinarily are dividing ourselves, as opposed to the crux of the matter, as opposed to how things ordinarily should be. And so you step a bit further and you want to interrogate a thing like evolution for the levels of plausibility such a theory ordinarily can come to bear in our time today. And you look at, previous work on, reciprocal altruism, and you look at how we ordinarily can tap into this particular idea and come to benefit ourselves. And what will someone like Trivia's get to tell us? Trivia's paper talking about reciprocal altruism and how we ordinarily should go and lead our lives will come to tell us that we ordinarily have to be looking at things that ordinarily can benefit us, and we have to weigh the cost stroke the benefit ratios that ordinarily can be gotten from we being altruistic to people. We have to come to identify cheaters. We have to come to identify those who want to do fast lanes and who want to play fast. And we have to mete out punishment to them, and they have to come to feel remorseful for their acts. Or else natural selection will not come to choose them in the long run of things. And how will natural selection not come to choose them? Natural selection will not come to pick them and favor them despite the fact that they are cheating, and despite the fact that at the moment, momentarily, they are benefiting more than ordinarily any other person, in a sense that the next time they come for our help, when we discover who they are, we come to refuse help to them. We come to refuse granting them help. And how do we refuse granting them help? Because we have identified that these persons are cheaters. They are not deserving of our help. And they go one way. And we continue with those who are very, very serious. And over time, if we begin to have preferences that ordinarily can stand for can stand for can stand for the well-being of life, can stand for how life ordinarily should go, and how survival can ordinarily happen within our ecosystem. We get to the particular point whereby we come to get this level of plasticity, upon which we now tell ourselves that we at the moment can lead life and live life reciprocating goods done within our community, not necessarily from those who've done a particular altruistic act to, but from another person, because these persons ordinarily will come to believe that one way or the other we ordinarily are good people and we are bound to do this to the next person if this is done to us. From such a theory, we ordinarily can come to live important life, grow together, stand tall, stand strong, as opposed to we wanting to kill ourselves. Because come on, brothers and sisters, we are suffering together. We keep on complaining that votes don't count, our votes don't count. Have you looked at the last elections? By what margin did someone like Tinubu purportedly win the elections? By what margin? Tinubu was in 8 million, Atiku was this same 8 million, at least 7 million or 6? But the margin was too close, and Peter will be just 6 million. If we are to accept what IGNET actually told us, as opposed to ordinarily we voting because we ordinarily need to vote. The great majority of people don't vote. The great majority of people, if we claim to be over 200 million, just 36 million shouldn't be voting. Just 40 million people shouldn't be voting. That is just like we have a crazy slumbering levels of voters that ordinarily should be deciding where the country ordinarily should go, but are not. And yet we come every day and we complain and we call God and we shout on Him. You see also that we are the ones also doing ourselves a great level of disfavor. What level of disfavor are we doing ourselves? The level of disfavor is so wild. You live in a country upon which you don't make the laws. You live in a country in which you don't decide the laws that ordinarily govern you. You don't decide ordinarily how things go. And so someone like Dike Chukwumerije still continues to tell us that those in power, politicians in office, hold the farm and the seed. For to elect is to give the elected the power to decide whether security operatives can murder citizens and walk away free. These things he maintains are in the hands of those who run the country. For politicians in office hold the yam and the knife. For to elect is to give the elected the power over life. Which child will remain a Marjorie or become someone better? Dike asks. These things are in the hands of those who govern the country. Because you cannot run away from them. You cannot run faster from those elected to make and enforce our laws. You cannot drive faster than the person driving you. No matter your qualification, education, or achievement, you are subject to the mentality of those in government. And so, my brothers and sisters, it is high time we come to face our problems. It is high time we come to tell ourselves that, agriculture have to be revamped. It is high time we come to tell ourselves that fraud doesn't pay. Fraud distorts the orientation of the mind. And for whatsoever reason fraud is being committed, it has to be condemned. For whatsoever reason the whole idea of the hookup phenomenon is being promoted, almost every girl is being feared and being suspected for being a hookup. And it's a problem. And if you are even to take someone like Gigi and you take someone like Cyberbudge and you look at the ways ordinarily they come to look at things, and you look at someone like Blessing CEO and the things they try to purport and the philosophies, if I should call them that, or rather the idiosyncrasies they try to purport and tell the people generally, you come to understand that it doesn't sell. It doesn't sell further than the place ordinarily it is. It doesn't sell. Why doesn't it sell? Because why should it sell? Why should such philosophies ordinarily sell? Why should such ways of thinking ordinarily be promoted? Either ways, why should we follow such ideas? Ideas that tend to degrade the people, that tend to degrade the human soul, that tend to corrupt the human personality. Why should we listen to ideas that one way or the other don't meet reality? Ideas that are so stupid to even start with. For tell me how you sleep knowing that you're a fraudster. Tell me how you go to bed knowing fully well that you're a hookup phenomenon, that you're a hookup babe and you're a hookup guy. Tell me how on earth you sleep comfortably well knowing that you ordinarily have been robbed of the idea of true love, and you've been robbed of the idea of living a genuine, peaceful, a calm, introspective, blissful life. Because the money you are getting from fraud and the ways of degradation and the ways of corruption you ordinarily have gone through to ordinarily attain that particular place, it's not something you should be doing. It's not a way ordinarily you should be living life. You can live life better. You can progress better. You can grow better if you ordinarily want to grow better. But no, you've been robbed of that particular reality. And so you have to get the money one way or the other. And one of the ways you go by is fraud. And fraud destroys your soul. Fraud destroys your sense of sensibility. It takes away your level of emotional connection. It takes away your level of empathy. It takes away sympathy from you. What about the girl that goes about doing hookup and goes about sleeping around and prostituting as almost in and about the only choice she has? What about the prospect of ordinarily coming to fall in love? What about the prospect of intimacy that ordinarily she has been robbed of? We don't see this. We don't look at this. We don't want to talk about this. We don't want to be reminded of the shame that comes from ordinarily living the way we ordinarily come to live. We don't want to face our fears. We don't want to face our shames. We don't want to face our problems. We don't want to come to understand that for the very fact that we don't have libraries functioning and we don't have books being published in the country and we don't have means of ordinarily coming to get the things we ordinarily must get to have stable life, for the fact that we don't have basic amenities, that we are almost being thrown back to the Hobbesian state of nature. And so the number of crime continues to increase. The number of insincere people continue to increase. The number of selfishness continues to increase. Why would that increase? Because people ordinarily are prone to want to survive one way or the other. And in the face of scarcity, what do you find? You find people ordinarily wanting to survive. And what has scarcity done in Nigeria? Scarcity has brought about the idea of what? You can put it simply, the idea of corruption. I don't want to go through the long chain that ordinarily would still arrive at corruption. Because when the professor doesn't ordinarily get paid well, He faces the student and then tries to exploit them one way or the other, sell materials to them, sell books, force them to do one or two stuff, get them to contribute to class reps, and him coming to fund his lifestyle, because he has children, right? And a whole lot of other things ordinarily that come down there. What about the politician? In face of scarcity, or in the face of perceived scarcity, such a person comes to look at his life from the standpoint of him securing the future of himself and the future of the children. And what happens? The problem down here is the problem that such a person cannot get enough. And in not getting enough and trying to save enough for himself and his family, comes to ordinarily fail to ordinarily cater for other families. And the problems are many. And people tend to tell me, Jackpa. Jackpa is not the solution to the problems of the country. Jackpa is just a reaction to the ways in which things at the moment are. Jackpa is people just trying to react to how life at the moment within Nigeria has come to be almost unbearable. And the embassies know. To a large extent, they know. They know they need manpower. They know they need people to work in their countries. They know they need people to ordinarily come do their, you can say, menial jobs and stuff like that, occupy their manpower and all that. But for how long? We know we're talking about cosmopolitanism and the idea of borders being almost invincible and being almost not noticeable and stuff like that. But a thing is, regardless, one is Nigerian and can only be Nigerian for the longest. Other attachments can come, but affinity towards home would almost always be there. And so one begins to live this double standard life. And so you find people now studying in Nigeria with the prospect of migrating to other countries, not necessarily because they want to migrate. Many persons want to stay back in Nigeria, but they can't. Many scholars would love to research within Nigeria, but they can't. Many persons would ordinarily want to live life and get married within Nigeria, but they can't. They have to find their way out of the country. And so you get to see that whether you have the money to migrate out of the country or not doesn't ordinarily make migration a solution to the problems of the country. And the more people get to migrate, the more they get to bring in foreign proceeds, and the more exchange rate is happening, and the more businesses ordinarily get to receive money. And one way or the other, with my loose sense of economics, you come to understand the presence of foreign money within a particular country more than the country's currency, and the dangers such foreign currency come to do within the exchange rate that makes up for the sales of such amount of money in the international exchange market. And even when you get to migrate to different clans and different lands, what do you go there to do? Do you go to become the same things you ordinarily want to do? Do you go there to become the psychologist you always wanted to be, the doctor you always want to be, the nurse you always want to be, or the lawyer you've always wanted to be? Or you just go there to, try to patch your life and fit in as you ordinarily can fit in? Or you just tell yourself, I'll try my best here and there to see how I can make the best out of what I can get, and then try to see that my family gets to survive. In the long run, what are we saying? And what have we been saying? That the problem and the trouble with the country is a thing that we must look at squarely, and we must look at together as a communal entity, not as an individual, not as individuals. We must come together and tell ourselves that we must vote, and our vote must count, else we protest. We must also come to get rid of our levels of ignorance, because I tell you for free, the levels of ignorance are the levels upon which we come to exhibit our ignorance. Also on the internet speaks the devil to a large extent. And we must come to We must come to tell ourselves that, you know what, we as a people can grow together, can stand tall, can do all the good things we must do if given the opportunities, and the opportunities will not be given by the oppressors. We must grab it from them, we must demand it from them, we must ask of these things from them, else we don't get it. And the simple analogy I would just give you is the fact that when our brothers and sisters go out to climbs that ordinarily support talents, climbs that ordinarily support the well-being of citizens and the well-beings of migrants and the well-beings of those who are legally in such an environment, even for those who are not legally there. When our brothers and sisters find themselves within such climbs, they succeed. So that you get to see Achebe's analogy from the very beginning of where we started from, that there's nothing wrong with the Nigerian climate, there's nothing wrong with the Nigerian people, there's nothing wrong with the Nigerians themselves. There's nothing wrong with Nigerians, so to say, and by extension, Africa, and by extension, global citizens. The only thing that is the problem, it is the right environment, the engineering that ordinarily has to go in making the place work, in making the country function well, in making the society grow. These are the things we ordinarily need to fix. These are the things we must look at. These are the things we must consider when looking at our problems. Because outside of this, if we don't look at this squarely, if we don't look at these concerns, if we don't examine the fact that we are being deceived and the world being a global village, we just stand by, watch us drown and kill ourselves. We also will just die. What you are going to look for in America can be replicated in Nigeria. Even better, can even be gotten from your own backyard. Remember the whole idea of which you define for Shokoto, they for Shokoto. It is the same thing that can play out here. Take, for instance, buildings such as, establishments such as the Tinapa. It's a thing that almost looks alien to our people. The drainages, the systems, the way ordinarily it was constructed, the roads, the interconnectedness of the whole stuff is a thing that can be replicated back home. And not just back home now. I mean, it can be replicated in different places. The cobblestones you get to see in Europe and how things ordinarily have been led can be done back home. We have the raw materials. Everything mustn't be about cement. Everything mustn't be about plastic. Everything mustn't be about tiles. And we have a whole lot of indigenous people to look at to tell us how to ordinarily build. One of them is the great man, Demas Nwoko, and his different sculptures down there. Or you want to go to Burkina Faso, and you have our brother down there, Francis, doing marvelously well. There are different things we ordinarily can learn from ourselves, within ourselves, and see to it that we function well. When your brother travels abroad, it is not a different person that is functioning abroad. He just come to have access to things. And mind you, most persons travel abroad with little or nothing. They borrow money, they travel, they work their way out because the system works, and then they pay their debt. And even those who travel with their last card still come to survive after 2, 3, 4 years. Have you tried to think about it the other way around? That somebody suffering in another country runs to your country to seek solace and seek means of ordinarily coming to make money? Have you come to look at how things ordinarily will turn out and play out? Definitely it's not the same answer you're getting, right? From the policies that will be set in place, the tax, the different levels of tariffs that will be placed against him, all this will be as embargo to ordinarily see that such person's venture crumbles. And so, in summary, from our elections to the social realities of our country, we ordinarily have to come to terms to start naming our problems. What are our problems? Bad roads, bad hospitals. In fact, no hospitals. Our prisons are nothing to write home about. I still call them prison, not correctional centers, because Those stuffs are not down there to correct people. They are there to punish. And they shouldn't be in existence ever, because they break all logic and they crumble all sensibility of what fundamental human rights ordinarily should be, even when the basic rights are taken. The right to life is being undermined by many correctional centers, so to call them, back home. What about agriculture? Our youths have to be responsible enough to know that they have to farm. And it is not just in and about calling the government. The government doesn't print money. The government is there to ordinarily see to the survival of the people and the needs of the people are met, making the economy and the situation and the police favorable for ordinarily coming to function as a country, coming to function as a people. But that cannot happen in isolation. The people have to be responsible enough to know their own part of the bargain, to know what they ordinarily are supposed to do. And up until now, we've not really come to know what we are supposed to do as a people. And even if we've come to know, we have come to refuse the truth of the matter, that we also have greatly, greatly been irresponsible, that we also have to start telling ourselves the truth. And what is the truth? The truth here is the fact that we must grow together, we must stand tall together, we must do things together if we must succeed together. Else we labor in vain, else we kill ourselves unnecessarily, else we just die in vain. And it doesn't benefit anybody. It doesn't benefit you, it doesn't benefit me, it doesn't benefit anybody. Believe me, it benefits us when we are working together. Whether we are going by trivias, reciprocal altruism, or we are going by our sensibility of our commonality and the shared idea of our humanity as being the oldest culture, that's being human, we must come to tell ourselves that we ordinarily ought to survive and survive together. Else, just like Mandela will always say, single fingers can easily be bent, but together we stand tall. Together we stand strong. And this is gotten from the fact that our people have come to tell us that single brooms can easily be broken when taken out individually in sticks, but a bundle, when bent, would resist breaking, would resist yielding to that particular stuff. We must stand together. You and I, you, my brother, you, my sister, myself as your brother, and all those in between this group, to ordinarily see to it that Nigeria must work and Nigeria must function together. And not just function for ourselves alone, function in relation to our African brothers and sisters in coming to fulfill our duty and our mission within the African continent. Else we betray ourselves irretrievably. And after doing that, we extend our generosity and our mission to the world, because we have a mission to play in the world. We have already been playing that mission, but we've not done it so well. Many persons can tell you talk is cheap. I don't believe that. I believe that ideas change the world. We mustn't get tired of talking. We must be able to point out our problems and point it out clearly, so that we don't be like Prometheus in the story of, in the tragedy recorded in the Iliad by Homer, upon which Odysseus told the one-eyed Cyclops that his name is Norman. And when the situation came upon which Prometheus ordinarily was supposed to, the Cyclops ordinarily was supposed to come to call out the name of Odysseus to seek for help, he was shouting, "Nobody is killing me! Nobody is killing me!" And what happens with that? Since nobody is killing you, why should people come to your rescue when nobody actually is killing you? So the first step of we solving our problem is to be able to point out our problems, is to be able to name our problem, is to be able to pinpoint it and say, this here, right here is our problem and we need to solve it. Whether we keep shouting on the social media, or we keep telling that on the faces of our political class, or we keep writing them in books, or we keep singing such in our music, our levels of activism mustn't stop. We must continue to do what we ordinarily must do today, tomorrow, into the future. I am Biringkpa bin Nameka, the mendicant. I'm your brother, strolling this world with you. See you next time. If you do like this episode, do like, drop a comment, and share with those you love because these conversations are necessary. See you next time.